Hi, welcome to the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. I'm John Milewski. We're on the set of Dialogue, where we just concluded a program. We were talking about the quarterly report, our flagship publication. This is the latest issue. You see the cover story, What If China Fails? And joining me is Steve Lagerfeld, the editor of the Wilson Quarterly. And Steve, tell us about this issue and about the cover story.
Well, John, this was a fun issue for us to do, and there's lots of good stuff in there. What If China Fails is a headline that grew out of a meeting we had here at the center where everybody was sitting around talking about how anxious they were about China's rise. And Robert Hathaway, who runs our Asia program, said, after a long time, he said, well, all of you are worried about China's rise. Those of us who study China and Asia, are more worried about what if it falls apart. And that was the genesis of this. And I've asked David Lampton and Ross Terrell to write on that question. And really the question is, if we're so worried about it getting ahead, should we really hope for it to fail?
Well, you mentioned David Lampton. Two of your contributors are here, Doug Besharov as well. David from Johns Hopkins, you had the task of writing about what's the downside of a China failure. They're a competitor, right? We shouldn't want them to succeed.
Well, I thought as Americans we like competition, but they certainly are a competitor, and I think increasingly so. And one of the bottom lines I would have is that I think we have to count on actually China continuing to make progress, and the real challenge it presents is what are we going to do to up our game? What are we going to do to increase our competitiveness, whether it's in terms of education or a more sound financial system? I think reform in China increasingly is requiring reform here. And we could add India to this story, too. There are lots of new entrants into the global game. But I think a failure, whatever we mean by that, would be very bad for the world, and you need only start with economics. China's our most rapidly growing big export market in the world. And if we're going to double our exports, as President Obama wants to, we've got to count on China in that mix.
The knee bone's connected to the shin bone. Huh?
Right.
Doug Besharov joins us from the University of Maryland. Doug, yours piece is called The Global Budget Race, and you begin by saying that whether they know it or not, the nations of the world are engaged in a race. Can you define the race for us?
Well, the race is to get their long-term budgets at least roughly in balance so that their populations can be productive and compete in the same world environment that David was talking about. And if they don't, their standards of living will fall even faster than predicted, and they will have periods of prolonged political strife.
You say something in this piece that most people in this town aren't willing to say, and that is that you've got to raise taxes and you've got to cut spending.
Well, there are loads of people in this town who are prepared to say cut spending, and there are loads of people who are willing to say raise taxes. The question is,
anybody say both?
Bringing them together.
Yeah.
Well, there are some. There are some.
Yeah. And that's inevitable. As you see it, there's no other way out. You can't grow your way out of the problem.
In the past, that was, I think, a more viable possibility. But if we're going to grow our way out of this problem, we have to become a lot leaner and faster first. And so either way, we've got to take more stringent action than our politicians seem ready to do.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you. Steve, I say this all the time, and it sounds like shilling, but this is a terrific publication, and it's because of the kind of contributions you get from gentlemen like this. And,
sure is.
Oh, look at that. It jumped out. I'll do some really shameless shilling. The Holiday Gift Ideas subscription card in the magazine. Don't be shy about subscribing. We'll cover the postage if you do. But if you'd like to hear the entire interview with these gentlemen, go to our website, the Wilson Center homepage. You'll see a dialogue tab. Click on that. You can find a complete 30-minute interview about what we've just talked about over the course of the last few minutes. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.